Hello, and welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. I am very excited for this guest today, and we've been talking a little bit before I hit record, and there's already been some interesting energies coming through. So I just can't wait to dive into this conversation. And I have this incredible human in front of me, Colleen Kimberly Broersma. She is a transformational healer who weaves in all kinds of modalities, frequency healing, meta programming. She is a soul activation intuitive, and she helps people heal old beliefs and fear so they can quantum leap into their most abundant, aligned selves. And she is all about clearing, like I said, outdated beliefs, fears, and generational or karmic patterns that can hold people back. And the activations she offers are about creating space for powerful transformation, rapid healing, and spiritual growth, which helps her clients to step into their highest potential and experience miracles in their lives. So I cannot wait for her to share more of her story. And I met this incredible human, I feel like through divine connection, like everything else. We were in an event and an experience together and quickly learned that we had some really interesting things in common. So I just can't wait to see what other synchronicities and beautiful things unfold from this conversation. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. Like, this is such a joy. I am so grateful to be here and to speak to you. So thank you.
My pleasure. So, the first question I love to ask people is when you hear that phrase, to follow your spark, what, if anything, does that mean to you?
It has multiple meanings to me. It means listening to my heart, feeling it in my body, what excites me, and, following that lead and really like trusting that. But also on the other side of that, it is going into those spaces that are super uncomfortable,
Mm,
like expanding past my comfort zone and challenging myself to try new things that
mm,
would normally put fear in me, but to expand those growth edges. And that's
mm,
where I have found most of the magic to be. And, I'm not talking about like doing skydiving or anything like that, but just doing things that would normally feel really uncomfortable to me has been like where I have found most of my spark and my joy. And also listening to those fun things, the play things too, but
mhm.
having both
Yeah,
of those
beautiful. Yeah, it sounds
halfway.
like that yin yang paradox of like, yes, leaning into the things that are joyful and leave you feeling excited in your body and are these like heart flares. And then also leaning into the things that might be a little scary or might be a little uncomfortable and would be a growth edge. And knowing that following your spark is both of those things.
Yeah, like if I see something, I'm like, "Ooh, no." And I'm like, "Oh, but wait." Oh, but wait. Let's reread that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Well, I'm excited to hear more examples of that. And when I was thinking about how I wanted to begin this conversation with you, I feel like typically with people will like get into stories or get into certain aspects of their life and then distill the themes. And yet what came up for me is my first question, I would love to know when you look back on your life, are there three biggest like themes or lessons that are coming to the surface right now? And then we can kind of like elaborate from there, just like overarching three biggest things you might want to share about your
All right.
life.
That's a great question. And only one really popped out right now, but I feel like as I talk about that, the other ones will come through. Throughout my life, and I've been reflecting on this a lot lately, the fact that I am always supported. Like, even in my darkest moments, and I know we're going to dive into the minutia and the details of my life and how, but there were some really dark times in my life where I was, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead of the story, addicted to drugs and an alcoholic. And I mean, it was a dark time in my life. And I reflect back, and I was always supported. I was never homeless when perhaps maybe I should have been. I never not, I always had abundance and wealth and
Mm,
prosperity, even if I didn't recognize it at the time
mm,
and I didn't know it. But I was blessed to have, and I'm talking about a divine team, the otherworldly team that I didn't even know it existed at that point in my
mhm.
life. but I was held, I was supported. I had some serious guardian. I think I had multiple angels. I know we usually just get like one, but I mean, and we all have teams, but I mean, my team has actively been holding that tight,
Yeah.
that net underneath of me, like, whoa, here she goes. I feel
Mhm.
like that is the biggest one, that I am always held, that I am always supported, that I am always being guided.
Mhm.
Another big overarching theme, to trust myself, to know myself, to love myself, and to value myself has been one that has been reoccurring
Mm.
over lifetimes, like to really feel worthy of who I am,
Mm.
why I'm here. But it's been, I like to say loud, the loudest these last few years. So that arching
Mm.
theme of like not feeling worthy, but now stepping into that embodiment of all those things that I just said, like
Mhm.
really stepping into my truth and my power. And that's been a really big
Mhm.
overarching theme. And then trusting myself and my gifts. That's been
Mm.
another one. Like when I started this journey, and again, we're going to dive into that, I didn't trust the things that were coming through, because if you had met me like even a year prior to when this started, I was, working in a bar.
Mm.
I just didn't have any of this knowledge or this bandwidth. It wasn't that what I was doing was wrong or bad. I just
Mhm.
didn't have the capacity to understand that there were things beyond my knowledge, things beyond what I could see that were supporting me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like these are deep lessons that have really unfolded over the course of your life and the course of different experiences that took some time maybe to learn, of like to trust myself and my gifts, and to feel this sense of worthiness, and to recognize the support that was likely always there even if it didn't really feel there. um, so I'm curious if you could share any like tipping point moment that's coming to mind right now that helped you learn any of those lessons in particular.
It's really funny you say that, because it was just streaming in. Like, we have a mutual friend that, and this is just recently. So, for those of you listening, today is my birthday, and I chose this day to do this. It's a very important date in this journey for me. And as recently as, I think it's been about a year and a half, I started working one on one for my own healing with Jeannie Baker. And she was really the catalyst. She was one of the first people I met right when I was cracked wide open in the beginning of my spiritual journey in 2018. But it took me a while to come back to work with her. She was
Mm.
always like a mentor and a teacher and a
Mm.
mirror. But it was in
Mm.
2023 that I started working with her. And she was the pivotal point when I realized that I hadn't been living in my body.
Mm.
And if this is new to anybody who's listening to this, it's essentially disassociating. But I took it to a whole new level, and I'd been doing it since I was a child, jumping out of my body when I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe for whatever reasons, and I'd been doing it since a very young age. So I was
Mm.
able to function, but I wasn't fully in my body. So,
Mm.
in order for me to know myself, trust myself, love myself, value myself, trust my gifts, or even just to feel safe, to be supported and know that I was going to be okay on the other side of all the things that I was moving through, I had to be in my
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was a really big one, and that was that was recent. Like, that
Mm.
wasn't too long ago.
Yeah. So it sounds like you said, of like a big piece of being able to trust yourself, feel safe in yourself, was to be able to like bring yourself back to yourself and feel grounded in your body, feel a connection to your body. And really that opened up a lot for you.
Yeah, because now that I am stepping forward as this soul activation intuitive and helping to transform other people's lives, I call myself kind of a living blueprint of what I offer,
Mm.
because I have gone through
Mm.
it.
Mhm.
I have to be in my body. Like, I can't not be in my body to do this work?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that really threaded it all together. And I still have moments where I'm like, oh, I am nowhere in my body. Where am I?
Mhm.
Like, I have to ground multiple times a day. But I have a beautiful toolbox amassed
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
these different techniques and ways to support myself. And To everybody listening, we did a beautiful meditation right before this where Gina guides us into this before we go into this portal of sharing with each other. And that was just so supportive. So thank you for that.
Mhm. My pleasure. And I would love if you could share too, if someone's listening to this and maybe they're like, what does that even mean to like be in my body? How do I even begin to do that? Is there any like simple practice that's maybe made a big difference for you that you could share with someone that they could really, wrap their head around and potentially explore themselves?
Yeah, I know it's still hard for me to explain not being in your body because I understand it completely because I know I wasn't. And I'll give some more clarification around that as we go further in the conversation too, like moments when I witnessed it. But for me, it's like a disconnection. Like I don't feel like I am fully all in one space. So what I do to call myself back in, I do a lot of tapping, emotional freedom technique tapping. I don't necessarily use the sayings that they suggest that you use, but just touching myself, calling my energy back. What you did at the end of the meditation, I call all parts and pieces back home all the time. I'm constantly calling them all back, bringing my energy back, putting my feet on the ground. A lot of times I'll find myself standing on one foot or
Mhm.
my feet up. Like I'm always making sure that my feet are connected to the earth. I earth a lot. I get my
Mhm.
feet out on that earth. Even when
Mhm.
it's cold out, I put my feet on the ground, spending time
Mhm.
in nature, a lot of breath work. I use like a lot of yogic techniques. Breath work is
Mhm.
very, very integral tool that I use. And it's really just bringing that energy back into the body, back into the heart. And then one of the big things that Jeannie taught me was I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. It is safe to live in my body. And I'll tap my heart. I am safe to live in my body. I am safe. And then I will change it to I am safely living in my body. I am safely living in my body. I am safely.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's been a
Beautiful.
really, yeah, it's been a really powerful reconnection.
Yeah. And I'm hearing even like simply, distilling some of the things that you said of bringing awareness to your body. And even the act of tapping, if you're not watching this on YouTube, tapping is literally like tapping parts of your body. And there's so many free resources that you can Google on YouTube if you want to explore this. And ultimately, it's like feeling your body, like touching your body, bringing your fingertips to your body and bringing presence to yourself and really feeling that connection. So even if you know nothing about tapping, if you Google nothing, like the act of putting your hands on your body in whatever way can bring that awareness and connection instead of being out in the mind, like out there in the world of like turning that reflection back on yourself, is what I'm hearing. And like the earth can be a really powerful way to do that as well as like feeling the sensation of the temperature, the texture, the earth itself underneath your feet, and allowing that sensory input to help you drop back into the moment.
Yeah, anything that calls yourself back. I love chanting and, there's so many, we could talk about the tools forever, but like movement, anything like that really does support coming back into your body. And if you're
Yeah.
like, I wonder if I live in my body, if you're having that thought, then there's a chance that you might not be living in your body fully all the time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I feel like either
So,
you know or you don't know?
Yeah. So definitely if you're listening, even if you're driving or anything else, like even putting a hand on your body, taking a deep breath, calling
Mhm.
your energy back, like imagining your energy, pouring back into your body can help you reground in that. So thank
Mhm.
you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So what's coming up for me now, you talked about that first biggest lesson of always feeling supported. And even though there were potentially moments where you didn't, can you share a little bit about that journey of maybe like the pre of when you didn't have that sense of knowing and support? And then if there was a moment, there may have been many moments, but if there's a moment that comes up that helped you really realize for yourself, oh, wow, I am really supported. I have this team around me.
Yeah, so this is a lot of hindsight reflection, and it's been in the last few years. I always had as I witness it now, I always felt very unworthy, but didn't know I lived in that. Like I always thought I was outgoing, fun, Queen Colleen was my moniker for many, many years. I was a bartender at a local bar in Baltimore, Maryland. I worked there for 15 years. I had a lot of friends, a lot of amazing experiences, but I was the quintessential party girl. And working in the bar industry can be a slippery slope. And I fell into addiction. I fell into heavy addiction. I'm not just talking recreationally. Like it basically became my life. And I was kind of proud of it. Like I was like, look at me doing my thing. And then a lot of things happened. One of my best friends, she was murdered in 2006, and I was unable to work because of just the grief, the overwhelming grief. And I remember I couldn't pay my bills at that time. Like there was just a lot of things, but out of the blue, the guy I was dating at the time paid my rent. Like just different things that showed me that I was always supported. It wasn't always about money. People showed
Mhm.
up for me. People have always showed up for me and taken care of me as far as emotional and mental,
Mhm.
not normally financially. That financial contribution was not normal, but that was just like a moment where, I was definitely supported. I've also let,
Mhm.
allowed myself to put myself in some really not safe situations with the drugs and alcohol, like different parties and nightclubs. And I had been, roofed before, and I was again blessed to have a friend swoop in, grab me, take care of me, where other things could have happened that, might not have ended in such. I mean, it was still a very traumatic experience, but it could have been a lot worse. Like there's
Mhm.
different portals and things where I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, I was really, 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 really taken care of, and really, it was like spirit was letting me learn these lessons and
Mhm.
go through these experiences, but I
Mhm.
was also really protected, like really protected.
Mm.
Those are just
Yeah.
some of those are pretty dark examples. Like there's, other times where those aren't the ones that are coming to mind right now, though. The really dark examples are coming to mind. But yeah, like where I was completely held and supported. And then after my spiritual awakening, again, it was just like this guidance and knowing now that I like started to connect in and started to realize that there was divine presence beyond what I understood or could see or could feel at that point. Now I feel like I can now feel those presences and sometimes see them, but they were there to help me and to support me. And I think
Mm.
the biggest thing I took out of all of this, which I will probably repeat again because I feel like this is my biggest lesson and that I share with all my clients, that these beautiful light beings, these divine presences, spirit, God, whoever you source to, whoever you pray to, divine, the angels, they are all here to support us in our daily lives, in our missions, if you will. But you have to remember to ask because they honor divine free will.
Mm.
So now I have these, what I call relationships of higher power, because I ask. I ask for help. I asked for help for this interview today, that I would speak
Mhm.
clearly, authentically, from my heart.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, thank you for sharing all of that. And, it sounds like very different places from where you were 15 years bartending, addiction, all of that, to now being this spiritual healer. What was that spiritual awakening that made that like seemingly drastic change?
Well, it was two parts. They say a spiritual awakening can happen, just kind of organically. I don't know if I've ever met anybody that that's happened to. Near death experiences or through a traumatic experience, like a really traumatic, like loss. It could even be like, it can be death, which was mine, or like divorce or things like that. Mine was through death. So, like I said, my best friend was murdered in 2006. And that wasn't where my spiritual awakening started. That kind of was a backsliding trajectory backwards. I don't actually consider it backwards. It was just the experience I needed to have where I went even deeper into drugs and
Mhm.
alcohol. In 2014, I found yoga, or should I say, yoga found me. And I took my first class. I was shaking when I walked in. I was terrified. One of the times that I didn't know I was, doing something uncomfortable to support growth edges. I had no clue that that's what I was doing. And I remember after the first 90 minutes, it was a 90-minute class, Charm City Yoga in Baltimore, Maryland, when it still existed. Beautiful studio. And I started to cry on my mat at the end in Shavasana. I didn't even know what Shavasana was, but here I was crying, and I didn't really know why I was crying. But it was
Mhm.
just like a small but subtle crack in the armor.
Mhm.
And that was the focal point of me like starting my journey. And I ended up just becoming, I took the addiction component of the drugs and alcohol and kind of shifted it into the yoga. So it was really beautiful. Like, I'm like, who wants to be high or drunk going to yoga? So it was a
Mhm.
really pivotal point in my life. Now I was still drinking. At that point, cocaine was my drug of choice, and I had
Mhm.
put down the cocaine, and I still drank, but then yoga became my fuel, if you will. So
Mhm.
very grateful for that moment and experience. But I want to say that my true awakening, like cracked wide open, holy F bomb, I won't say the holy F bomb, what is happening, was on my 50th birthday, or shortly after my 50th birthday, which is why I
Mm.
decided to share this. Shortly after I started doing yoga, I met the love of my life. I reconnected with him. We were always connected. We had known each other for 10 years, tried dating 10 years before that, but I wasn't ready because I was the quintessential party girl. And we reconnected in 2015 and we fell in love and he was my person. Like the stars aligned. It was one of the most powerful, beautiful experiences of my life. And he took me to Paris for my 50th birthday, my first time leaving the country, going to Europe. And on our last night there, he suffered a fatal cardiac arrest and died right before my eyes. Like unexpected, obviously. And that was the moment that just like cracked me wide open. And I mean, it was like watching a movie. That's when the first time I really actively knew I left my body because I was watching it from the ceiling. It was wild. That was what woke me right up and I said, "Okay." And I could talk about Paris for a while, but I
Mm.
feel like that I really just want to share that that was the pivotal point of my awakening at this point.
Mhm.
And there was no going back after that. Like I was
Mm.
not the same person. My whole life had been, you know, completely shifted in that one moment.
Wow. Yeah. That is a very powerful story. And I have like tears in my eyes for so many different reasons of like hearing you share that and so many parts of your experience, for the span of your life from the addiction to the partying to your friend being murdered in 2006 to yoga, everything else. You could tell so many different stories about each of those moments. And I'm curious looking back, like what is the story that you tell, or like how does it make sense to you, or what is the meaning of, these moments for you in your life when you look back of like, do you find any, let's say, reasons for why those things happen, because there doesn't have to be a reason for it, but yeah, I'm curious like what helped you tell a story about any of those things that has served you in your life. Does that make sense?
I believe I understand what you're asking me. Yes, thank you. It's a great question. For a while, I would laugh, cry, like, Spirit, I did not ask for the death plan for my spiritual awakening. Like, yeah, I didn't need to have all these losses for me to see what you wanted me to see, but I needed to have experienced these losses to see what Spirit wanted me to see. I believe, and this is just my belief system, that
Uh-huh.
I aligned with this lifetimes ago. Like this was the trajectory and course my life was always going to take, and it was always written in the stars. And Lou and I were going to have this amazing 3 years together because it was the best, and it was always written in the stars that he would be the person that cracked me wide open and sent me into this trajectory. And then my friend Anu, who passed away in 2006, she was also like a trajectory. Like, you know, I have to I have to wonder why I signed up for that plan, but I also know that it was just part of my path. And as I've gone through my life since this time, I have been able to let go of the anger and the rage and the frustration and the pain and just find gratitude for the experiences that we had together. It was like I intuitively knew before I knew I was intuitive that Anu was going to leave this planet because I took hundreds of pictures of us right before she passed that I wouldn't have had. And the same with Lou. Like we lived every minute. We lived out loud. We loved out loud. And I see now that our relationship was not normal. Like a lot of people don't get to experience what I got to experience. And again, in hindsight, I think, I always knew that it wasn't going to be very long in the physical form. So I'm not even sure if I'm answering your question at this point. but I really am able just to harness the beauty and the gratitude of all of those experiences and where they have brought me to this now moment, this present moment, sitting here in front of you, talking to you with so much love in my heart for those humans that held
Yeah.
me, that shaped me, that loved me.
Yeah. Let's just take a deep breath together. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank
And what I heard in that, like you said, is just that deep gratitude for the moments that you got to experience with these beautiful humans. And we never know how long we're going to get on this planet, we're going to get in our relationships or anything else. And to look back and know that some people don't ever experience the love that you knew or the friendship that you knew. And there can be gratitude along with the pain. And like what you were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, there can be both. And how to hold space and honor both of those things is
you.
beautiful.
Thank you. And I don't want to portray it as that it just happened overnight. It's taken me a long time to get, and I still have these pockets of grief. Last night, definitely my birthday always triggers it, because it was a few days after my birthday. And like I said, I disassociated from that moment and jumped out of my body. And I didn't even start unpacking the grief with Lou for at least 3 years after that. So it's still a process. I don't want to make it sound like that all shiny. If there's
Yeah.
one thing I want, if there's one thing I might be jumping ahead again, say in this entire process is that it's not what the work that I do as a healer and the work that I've done on myself. It is not unicorns and rainbows. We are
Yeah.
we are getting into the shit. We are getting into those shadows. We are getting into the things that make us uncomfortable and the thoughts and that's been my journey since this happened, having to really examine myself in the mirror. I was telling my friend yesterday that Lou was like this beautiful external root chakra. And for those of you
Mm.
who are listening that don't know what a root chakra is, it's like your connection to the earth, your connection to your ancestors, to security and safety and money. And he loved me so much. And he would just mirror that love to me, and I would see that love and I would feel that love and I would embody that love, and I felt so confident and secure in myself. But when he passed, when he died, I didn't like what I saw in the mirror anymore. It was
Mm.
like everything had shifted, and that's where I had to
Mm.
start my journey, like looking into that mirror at myself through my own eyes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a deep invitation, like you said, of instead of looking for someone externally to be your root chakra or to help you feel grounded in yourself, it's like, okay, when those external factors are not there anymore, how do you be that loving mirror and support system for yourself?
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't happen overnight.
Oh
It's
no.
journey. We're in this life journey for a reason, and to experience what each of us needs to experience in this life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not easy. I'm curious too, speaking about, you were talking about like knowing and owning your gifts. How has what you've experienced, both the challenges and the blessings, changed or maybe informed like the work that you do and the types of people that you find yourself helping the most?
It's been an interesting journey, and I hope to answer your question correctly because, like, information comes in while you're asking me, like, spirits, like, showing me, like, I started my journey off shortly after Lou died. My trauma response after he died was to jump right into serving. Like, I didn't even know what I was going to be serving. I didn't know what anything looked like. But I will back up for a moment. The night that he passed away, I promised him that I would live my best life, my happiest life in his honor. Like, I held his hand and told him that because we had talked about that in Paris before. We said when we got back from Paris, both of us were unhappy in our jobs. We were happy with each other, but our jobs were like not fulfilling us in any way, shape, or form. And it was actually starting to be kind of soul sucking in a way. And we were going to do something about that when we got back. So I made that promise and commitment to him. And that promise and commitment was the trajectory to get me home from Paris and back into Baltimore, back into the home that we lived in together, and start to try to pick up the pieces. So I made that promise. So almost immediately, I jumped into a yoga teacher training, terrified, because I'm not a yoga student that is bendy or flexible. I can't touch my toes. Like all the thoughts that you have when you think of yoga, I was the complete opposite of that. But that's why I decided I wanted to do it, because I knew that there were people out there who were grieving, who didn't think yoga was for them, who might find the resources I did in yoga, but were too afraid to try if I could just get my message out there. So I started my journey as a yoga teacher and said, okay, this is my gift. This is it. Hanging up my yoga teacher sign. We're done. About 2 months later, I got called into a Reiki training. I'm like, okay, now I'm a Reiki master and a yoga teacher. This is it. We're done. And every time I hung up my little sign claiming that these were my gifts and I was, like this was the course that I was taking, this was my life. I still don't think I'm answering your question, but I'm going to keep going with this. I would find something new, or something new would find me.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I thought I aligned with my gift, Spirit would be like, but oh, wait, there's more. And
Mm.
now I've just resigned to the fact that this is what I'm doing in this now moment. And these gifts have helped inform the trajectory of my pathway forward. But this isn't the end all be all. I still believe that there's more beyond what I'm doing now. But this is the most aligned version of who I am in this moment, showing up to you, sharing the gifts that I have at this moment. Does that answer
Yeah.
your question at all? I don't, I don't know.
Sure. And what I'm hearing is I asked the question of like, how did that moment or those moments kind of inform the work that you do now? And one thing that I heard is like, in that moment, there was this promise to him of like, I am committed to live my most fulfilling, purposeful, authentic life, and this like deep commitment in that moment moving forward. And you went out after that and began to explore of like, okay, what does that look like? Oh, yoga, beautiful. Maybe this is it. Oh, Reiki, maybe this is it. And as you were going down that path, this realization of like, there's never a this is it. Like we're never finished. The sculpture is not complete. Like ourselves, our lives, our purpose, they are ever evolving, and you can be the fullest self-expression of yourself in this moment, and there's always going to be room for growth and room to explore that question of like, what does my fullest self-expression, what does my purpose look like now? Because we're never done.
Right. Yeah. Wow, you're good at this, by the way. You hear so I love to acknowledge other people's gifts, and that is a gift. Like you really hear and you weave that in, and yes, because I guess the answer to your question that I never answered was I went in search of my true authentic self. A yoga teacher said that to me on a yoga mat in 2014. I didn't even know what it was, but it instantly landed right in the heart. And I said, "Oh, okay." So that was what all of those experiences informed this truth seeking, that I had to know who I was, why I was here, and I wanted to step into and embody everything that I was meant to do. Like life is,
Yes.
I believe in multiple lifetimes, y'all, but life is too short. Like we don't only get this one life, but let's make this lifetime count, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
totally. So I feel like that's part of the question of yes, okay, you went on this journey to explore your gifts, to follow your spark of what that looked like. And kind of the other side of that, I'm curious too, like who do you find coming to you now? Do you find people coming to you who have experienced similar things, or like what do you find in that?
it's so funny. I'm like sitting here nodding emphatically, and I'm like, people can't see you unless they're watching the
Some
YouTube.
people can. If they're watching
Oh my
YouTube,
gosh.
you guys go to
Yes.
YouTube
I
and watch this.
mean, like I said, I have realized that I am the living blueprint of everything that I share. So yes, I am 100% attracting like my clients, the humans, my friends, like a lot of my friends like I meet, like they have gone through a traumatic loss. Like the person that I find that I'm working with the most is somebody whose whole life has felt like it's just been a lie because of something traumatic that has happened, and has
Mm,
reframed the way that they look at everything. Like they're out of connection with their divine blueprint or their soul's unique pathway. Because of this, they realize that what supported them before doesn't support them anymore. They feel disconnected from their truth, disconnected from their relationships. Their health is suffering because they're not living in resonance with who they are. They're in dissonance from,
mm,
and that's the people that I have been working with that, again, have had some typically loss, whether it be,
mm,
like I said, through death, through divorce, even a job, like something that has really
mm.
just made them question everything, and they
Mhm.
feel lost, and they know that there's something more that out there, but they don't know how to get
Mhm.
there because that was me. Like I
Mm.
said, I'm my own living blueprint.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like you said, of when you have this embodied experience, like you've been through it. You've been through the part of your life where you were living out of alignment, you were this party girl, drug addiction, all these things. And now you have this experience of what does it look like and feel like to live in alignment with your purpose, with your soul, with your heart, with in relationship with the divine. And you've been through all these things. And even though like part of you, like the ego is like, why did I have to sign up for this death plan, God? There's another part of you that's like, well, there's lessons here. And there's other people who are going to have gone through something similar, and you're going to be able to be a way shower for them. And what an incredible gift to those people. I'm sure you are.
Thank you. I love that word. And thank you. You're making me all emotional. I love it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's been another big part of my journey that I don't think I echoed before. When I wasn't living in my body, I wasn't feeling my emotions. So
mm,
I love that you have me all emotional and like, thank you. And just in my feels.
yeah. Speaking of all these beautiful people that you serve, like how can people find you, work with you? What does that look like?
So my website is Illuminate with Colleen. I really sat with that for a long time. I just put this together in 2023. My original company was called The Soul Nourish, but it just didn't feel authentic anymore. And then I was like, what do I want to do? And I'm like, I want to illuminate the cosmic wisdom of every individual soul like mine was. And I'm finding a lot of people don't really understand what that means. But again, that's illuminating your soul's unique design, your potential within. So you can find me on my website, illuminatewithcolleen.com. You can find me on Instagram. I usually use my personal page versus my business page because I just have such a rapport with everybody on there. It's under A Conscious Colleen, the letter A first. You can also find me on Facebook under Colleen Kimberly Broersma. I do have business accounts, and I really do know that I need to start using those. But
You.
I love to be authentic and interact with people on my personal pages and
Mhm.
share my wisdom or whatever I'm going through authentically. I share it
Yeah.
all. I share it all. Like I
Nice.
don't, and I like to do it that way. Yeah, I feel like that those are all the best ways to reach out to me. Spirit,
Beautiful.
you can
Well,
send a message through Spirit. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, no, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not kidding, and I don't kid about that either. Like you said, of like you can ask for that divine support. And I will do that all the time of like, Spirit, send me the practitioner right now that can serve me most in this moment. So if you are listening to this and maybe you've put out that prayer consciously or unconsciously, this could be a spark to follow. This could be a
Yeah.
breadcrumb to follow. So I would 1000% believe in that.
Yes, and I want to say this too, like reach out to me if you're just a little bit curious. I do connection calls that are free. I would love to talk to you. And I will say this, what I've learned through my experiences as a healer, that we're not always going to be the right fit all the time. But like Gina here, who I'm speaking to, I say thousands, but that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I have so many friends since I started this journey that are healers as well. And everybody does something different. Everybody brings their own unique healing to it. So if we aren't a good fit, but you're following that spark to receive some healing to support you, I am going to, refer you and recommend you to somebody who might be.
Yes, I love that example. And it's also this like abundance mindset of like, there's always going to be the right fit for each of us. There's always enough people, there's always enough healers, there's always enough support. And what I'm also hearing is any step is a step that creates momentum. So whether someone reaches out to you or reaches out to me or takes some other step, that's some more clarity that you will receive in that moment that you didn't have before. So if there's a spark on your heart, if there's like a desire of like, oh, maybe it would be really be nice to see a healer or see a coach or have some kind of support, take an action and see what happens because that's the only way we ever know and get feedback by being in action.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many trainings I took because I thought it was part of my trajectory in the course of my, what I was doing that just didn't align at all, but it was still informative. It still led me to the next thing, even though that thing wasn't for me. So, yes, please follow your spark. Again, anywhere you're intuitively guided, even if it's not what you're supposed to be doing, it will still inform you in some way and support you in some way.
Yes, 1000%. Well, now, if you're open to it, I would love to invite you to share a little taste of some of these activations that you do so that people listening could get an experience of that for themselves.
I would be honored. So, I would just want to clarify what I'm sharing today. I am trained in many, many modalities. I feel like, well, I know I've been doing these for lifetimes, but in this lifetime, one of my favorite, I words. I'm just going to ground for a second. Hold on. Coming back into my body. Through my journey, through my process of healing, through taking all of these different certifications, I reconnected with my galactic soul family. And for those of you who have never heard of this, I am a starseed. I am an Arcturian starseed. And I was just blessed to have all those synchronicities following my spark and got reconnected with them. So I'm going to share some Arcturian frequencies with you right now. If you're not familiar with Arcturians, it is a star constellation in the Butes constellation. It's a star, and Arcturians are between 5th and 10th dimensional light beings that are here to support the Earth and the ascension of the Earth itself, and all of the humans on the Earth. They are divine light beings. They are so beautiful, and these frequencies that I'm channeling have their own natural intelligence and intuition, and they just meet you where you are. So there's nothing for you to do, and they can do no wrong. Like,
Mhm.
they're so beautifully held. So I'm going to channel some of those just to give you a little bit of background. And if you're like, what the is that? I just want to invite you to trust and know that it is safe for you to
Mhm.
receive. You are worthy of receiving these. And
Mhm.
to please reach out to me afterwards if you would like to know more.
Mhm. I have a question before you jump in.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you talked about, we have divine will. For people listening, would it be supportive of them? And maybe you'll get into this as you begin it to set an intention of like, may I be open to receive this right now? Or is there anything someone could do if they want to or don't want to be
That's
open to receive?
beautiful. That's a beautiful question. Thank you. Because I used to do that in yoga. And, obviously, yes, everything follows divine free will. Like I said before, when you want to activate your team or the spiritual beings that support you, you just need to ask for help because they follow that divine free will. So, in the same aspect, to the flip side of that coin, if you're like, okay, I've really enjoyed listening to this podcast, but I do not wish to receive because this doesn't feel in alignment with me, then you can simply say, no, thank you. And these, again, divine light beings will honor that. So thank you for bringing that up. That's beautiful. So I was talking to Gina beforehand, and I set what's called sacred space. So it is a divine space for these frequencies to be channeled through, and it is also a protected space. So I've asked that anybody listening to this recording, or listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, you're all in this divine protection. And I'm going to go ahead and invite you to close your eyes before I share anymore. And take a deep breath in. Slowly exhale, sigh the breath out of the mouth. Let's take another deep breath in together. Exhale, audible sigh out of the mouth. And we're going to do that one last time. And as we do that, exhale. This is where I want you to call all parts and pieces back home. Anywhere you and your attention has been off to. Back into this space, back into your body, back into this time, back into this dimension. And if you would like to call upon any of your team of light, any guides, any angelic beings, any light beings that you work with, or if you don't know who your team is, you can just simply ask them to come in. Your team of light, of the highest light and resonance from the company of heaven on high. You might have felt a presence come in when I said that. And just trust and know that you are held, you are safe, you are supported, and you are worthy of receiving these frequencies. And I'm now channeling what is called the Arcturian Dimensional Bridge to relax and center all of your 7 subtle bodies. This just connects you to the Arcturian consciousness, this higher dimensional consciousness of love, of beauty, of presence. I just invite you to receive. And you may feel sensation. You may see visual colors behind your eyes. Your third eye may get activated. You may receive messages as these frequencies channel. And you may feel or see nothing, but just trust and know that they are meeting you exactly where you are. And as we relax and center the 7 subtle bodies, I'm going to invite you to set an intention for this quick healing session, this quick Arcturian healing light session. Anything that comes to mind, don't overthink it. Let that be your intention for the next few moments. Breathe it into the body and let these frequencies help to imbue that intention into the blood, the molecules, the atoms, the infrastructure of your physical form. I'm now channeling the Arcturian Dimensional Bridge to cleanse, purify, and energize your 7 subtle bodies. Now, when I say your 7 subtle bodies, that is your physical, your etheric, your emotional, your mental, your causal, which is your karmic, your spiritual, and your divine bodies. And there's nothing for you to do other than simply to receive. But as it clears your thought forms and then energizes them to be more positive, to align with your higher timeline, to your higher frequency. And as both of those channel in the background, I'm now going to channel the Arcturian Dimensional Bridge in the quantum field. And the quantum field means I'm just letting it go wherever it is needed most to support you on all levels. And if you want to reconnect back to that intention, I invite you to do so now. And I'm now channeling the Arcturian Dimensional Bridge to harmonize and integrate all of these divine light frequencies that you just received. Again, there's nothing for you to do other than just simply relax into it, trusting and knowing that these frequencies will integrate into your body, into this timeline with ease, with grace. And as they start to harmonize and integrate, I want you to take another deep breath in. Exhale, sigh the breath out. And as you do that, connect to your heart space. Perhaps you even bring both hands to your heart. If you're driving, don't do that. But just connecting into your heart space and finding a moment of gratitude for all the light beings that came to support you. A moment of gratitude for yourself. Taking one more deep, deep breath in, connected to your heart. Exhale. And gently blink your eyes open. Snap your fingers, coming back into the space. Hmm.
Thank you.
Hmm. Thank you. I could have done that for much longer, but I realized we have a time limit. Oh.
That was beautiful. And as I'm like coming back, to this present moment, again, I don't know if you heard this or even listeners if you heard this, but I definitely heard this. There was a point in the activation of that like ocean sound, like static coming back through again. And before we hit record in the meditation that I was guiding Colleen through, I told her, I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. Every time I stop talking, I hear this like ocean wave staticky like sound. Like, what is that? And you were like, I don't hear it. So A, did you hear it? And B, like if you listening heard this or not, I don't know. But like something was moving and I've never heard that sound before on any of these recordings, same equipment, everything else. So
That's wild. Yeah, I love that. I don't hear it, but I think the reason that's significant to share, and I'll share this really quickly before we finish up, is following my spark led me to move to St. Petersburg, Florida from Maryland 6 months ago. And today I went to the beach to honor my birthday, even though it's pretty chilly here. We have some of that Arctic weather that you guys are experiencing, Arctic weather for Florida, quote unquote. So I went to the beach today and got in the water and cleared my energy, and I just feel like I brought that beach energy back because water is such a significant part of how I share my healing now. Like while I was channeling those frequencies, I saw all the different colors of the sky illuminating off the water and like a beautiful golden pyramid over the water spinning as I was channeling all those frequencies. So water is a really huge part, an element, huge part of how I'm sharing my healing now. So it does not surprise me that you are experiencing. I don't take credit for it like it, but I believe Spirit brought it for a reason.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that incredible gift. So I'm so curious if there's one thing that you hoped people would remember or would walk away from this conversation with, what is that thing that you'd want to leave them with?
No matter how dark your life becomes, or how heavy, or how lost you feel, there's always a way to reconnect. There's always a way to, step into the next part of your life. And there's always resources beyond what you may understand by,
Mhm.
asking for help, asking for guidance, and just remembering that we're all walking each other home. You
Mm.
asking for that guidance, and you're going to find that thing, that person, that whatever, because we're all honestly walking each other home. And I think the last thing I would like to impart on you that was a big lesson for me to learn was these things that happen to us in our life, these challenges, this contrast, these moments of pain, and they're really happening for us, not to us. And it's to align us with our most authentic self.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the very last question I love to ask people, because I feel like so much of following your spark is just giving yourself permission to follow these like curiosities, interests, again, the things like you said at the beginning that excite you, and also to kind of like bring it home of you just talked about, trusting that if challenges happen, there can be a lesson in that, there can be a gift in that, those dark moments can teach us. And I would love to know, is there something that's been sparking like excitement or curiosity or joy that you've been giving yourself permission to explore recently, like big or small? Is there any moment like that?
Yeah, my obsession with the beach has led me to collect all of these shells. Today I got 12 sand dollars. Not living, I made sure they weren't living. And I'm supposed to create frequency art with it. I'm not really sure what that means, but it's just the message I received and this bit. And I see myself doing these beautiful healings on the beach. I keep getting told it's called earth magic, like where I'm taking the different modalities and supporting one-on-one on the beach and doing all of these sacred activations, and just like I'm like so excited about it, but it hasn't all downloaded yet. But this is me following my spark. Like I know I moved to St. Petersburg for a reason. I'm not really entirely
Mm.
sure what that reason is yet, but
Mhm.
that is part of what I see coming in, like following my spark to this new place that is creative, and still is stepping into my purpose, you know? Like
Yes.
joyful and playful, yet
I love that.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And like I said, this is one of my favorite questions because I feel so often people don't give themselves permission or time or space to just like, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I like really want to go to the beach or I really want to do this. So thank you for sharing that. Earth magic sounds amazing. Yeah, if you're listening to this, follow the spark, whatever it is. If there's something that's sparking joy, if you have a prayer that you're sending out there for practitioner, anything, give yourself space and permission to follow it.
Yes.
Thank
So much
you.
yes.
It has been a pleasure, Colleen. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. Again, you have so many beautiful gifts. Thank you for letting me witness you sharing them.
Thank you. You too. All right, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.